All right, welcome back. This is our last module. We'll have this video, we'll have some packet work to finish up our hours, and we'll make sure our drive by the numbers is included in that. And then at the very end, we'll talk about what are the next steps once you finish traffic safety. And for those of you that might have missed a quiz here and there, I'll make sure to reach out. So be checking your school email and or Teams, and I'll post if you need to get that done. So the idea is getting all the classroom stuff finished, and then drives will happen when they happen. Hopefully we can start driving soon. I have no idea when the governor will lift his ban and or what that will look like, but if it runs to the summer, that's perfectly fine. If we need to do drives in August, September, October, whatever that looks like, we will make sure that it gets done for getting traffic safety completed. So kind of this mod is kind of a hodgepodge of things between cost, care, emergencies, collisions, and insurance. Typically, your finance class with Mr. Wood would go into a lot of the costs of owning a car and that. So we'll do a little bit more than maybe usual, but just know that that's what you will have. If we're completely wrapped up and finished here in the next couple of weeks, Mr. Wood hasn't been doing or giving you anything because he knows that your first priority is traffic safety. But if we have some time and you are wanting to look into that, Mr. Wood would be the person that would have the best information because he's in that business finance. I like it and know a little bit just because I've owned a car and have had to fix things on cars, but by no means an expert. So he will have some stuff maybe in the future if you are curious. Okay, so let's get this going. All right, so costs, maintaining that. So first off is there's a big thing about obviously now that you have the access to drive, do you need to drive everywhere? And that positive or negative effect on your environment, your wallet, right? There's a lot of things that go into deciding, do I need to drive or can I walk? Can I take the bike? Can I take a bus? What that looks like. Now cars are getting more and more efficient in different ways that they are built, right? You have electric cars, which are becoming more and more popular. When I was learning to drive, there was no such thing as an electric car, but the cost to produce electricity is so much lower than the cost to produce gas. So if you can, right, running a light switch all day doesn't take a lot of money based on electricity. But if it was powered by gasoline, right, that would be quite a bit. Now gas prices are coming down because people aren't driving. The cost of oil is coming down. But eventually, once we all get back onto the road, that price of gas will go back up. And then obviously just the environmental impacts, right? Your car produces carbon monoxide and a lot of other things in the exhaust. So just kind of weighing that and kind of, is it worth the trip? The thing with the United States is we're such a large country based on size that a lot of times it's hard to not drive. Okay, we have to be able to drive so we can get to places, right? Some countries you hear about their statistics and their roads are so much safer than our roads, which yes can be true, but they also don't have the distances that they're driving, right? If only people in Bellingham only drove in Bellingham, right? We as a little community could be safer than, say an Everett or a Tacoma. But we have an intermix of people all over the place, whereas some of your European countries are landlocked or they are kind of surrounded by water. They have smaller populations. They have less people with the need to drive. If you ever travel abroad, uh, Europe has a robust train system, that we have trains, but not a whole lot of people use it, just because it's not fast enough, it's not efficient enough, right? Even if you look at some of the Asian countries like Japan, they have the high speed trains, and so they really cut down the need to drive. And if someone is conducting the train, a train collision is a lot less likely than kind of average people driving. So all of those things go into it. So when you are maintaining a vehicle, here are the things that you might consider. Some of you will have whoever you bought the car from. If you get it from a dealership, they might have some kind of maintenance, right? There's a bunch of companies that also do maintenance on a car. So at this point in time, you might never need to do that maintenance, but knowing what you need to fix or what you should be looking for is going to be important. And again, most of the maintenance comes with lights or warnings, or the person will tell you what and when it needs to happen at. Okay, so using the right oil is what keeps your engine moving smoothly. Um, Engine has a lot of parts that move up and down that causes heat and friction, and if you had metal on metal, that would not move very well. So oil kind of just lubricates that, and it is usually good anywhere from 3 to 10,000 miles. It depends on the car, depends on the engine, depends on a lot of different things. My personal car is every 6,000. The traffic safety car is about every 5. My friend's car, his is every 10,000 miles. So it really depends on the car you have. And as the car gets older, usually you replace the engine motor oil a little bit more often, just because as it wears, some of that grinding can happen, and you don't want metal in there. There's a bunch of different filters in your car. You have a air filter, engine or oil filters. Dirty filters will make your car run less efficient, essentially, right? Air filter, if the air is not getting cleaned properly coming in, you can cause some damage there, or just will be less efficient. Okay, making sure your tires are properly inflated. If it's too low or too high, that can cause inefficiency in them. So you take the valve stem off, you can put a little device in there, tire pressure. It'll tell you what the PSI is on the inside of your driver's side. There's usually a little sticker that tells you what PSI is at. Somewhere, in the 30s is pretty common for most normal cars, right? It could be higher, it could be lower. It just kind of depends on the tires. Tune-ups is something that happens every once in a while. You don't really need a tune-up all too often, but as cars get older, they get tune-ups. So my car, when I was a teen, the factory had like a scheduled tune-up at 70,000 miles, because at 70,000 miles, there's certain things that started to wear over time. My wife's car, the Kia, she needed a tune-up at 90,000. One of the engine cylinders stopped running, so the check engine light comes on. It set a warning. Since a lot of cars nowadays, especially newer ones, are all pretty much a giant computer system, you can plug a device in and it'll tell you what the engine light is coming on for, or what the code is for whatever dash light comes on. So when that one comes up, it was a check engine light, and then if you plugged it in, it said that a cylinder was misfiring. And the easiest way to fix that is just kind of get a whole tune up, just to kind of clean everything out and kind of fix it up, right? So there's also sensors. So you have filters, you also have sensors, because inside the engine is an explosion. So if you don't have the right gas to air mix, that could decrease your efficiency there. Okay, speeding, faster you go, the less fuel efficient it is. 50 or 55-ish is the most fuel efficient speed. Now, obviously, you're going to go what the speed limit is. If you're on the freeway, you're probably going to still go 60 as long as it is clear. So you're not just going to go 50 just because you're going to save a couple cents at the gas pump. Keeping it steady. The most fuel gets used, or what causes you to use fuel the most, is starting, rapid starts, rapid stops, kind of that changing of a pace, right? Once you get to a speed and hold your speed, right? That tachometer going down and kind of just staying at that same exact spot. If you keep it steady, you're going to use less gas, right? If you can avoid idling is just letting your car run. So when we're just sitting um, in a parking lot, you'd want to turn it off. Probably not a stoplight or stop sign, right? But if you are picking up younger brother from soccer practice and you're going to be waiting there for a significant amount of time, just turn it off. And a lot of the school zones, parking lots like Happy Valley, I know has one. It They tell you to turn off your car. Not only is that helping you, but it's also helping in the environment, right? You're not polluting as you use that. Some of these bottom ones are kind of silly. I just left them on there. Driving with the wind, right? Obviously, if the wind is behind you, it's pushing you. Aerodynamics is big. Most cars are pretty aerodynamic to reduce drag, but driving with the wind helps moderate the AC. Um, if you use it, it will make your car run a little bit less efficient. But if it's also a summer day and it's 95 degrees out, you obviously want to be comfortable. So just kind of choosing what that looks like. Some people get really particular about it. Mythbusters did a study about it, and at lower speeds, it's more efficient to cool your car with the windows open. Obviously, if your windows are open, it's creating drag, but higher speeds, it's more efficient to use your AC than to have the windows down because of the drag that it's caused from it. So if you really care, you could look into that. But heat and AC, I kind of just whatever's comfortable, because you're not going to be driving your car a whole lot if you're never comfortable in it. So yeah. Okay. And so then there's a website called Edmunds.com, and it has a cost of ownership or owning a car. And most of the time, when you see a cost of owning a car, it's usually a 5-year cost. So you have the cost to buy it, the insurance, any kind of maintenance that you have to do on that, and the cost of fuel, right? Because if one car gets 30 miles to the gallon versus a truck that might get 15 to 18 miles per gallon, in 1 year, you're going to spend a lot more on gas in a truck than a small car, right? So they kind of do a 5-year price to own, just so you can see all the costs. Some cars and some manufacturers just kind of notoriously have different um, things that have maintenance that goes on with a particular car. So um, those are kind of things to consider. Brands of cars, types of cars, it's really just personal preference, right? Making sure that you test drive a car before you get one. You could also have a mechanic look at it before you get it. Most auto dealerships will usually try and do right by you, but you can also take it to private mechanic, especially if you're buying it not from a dealership, taking it to a mechanic so they can see, is there anything seriously wrong with it before you buy it, and then realize that you have to fix or replace something, because a car could be running fine but have some issues that you can't see or can't really hear, and you really don't know. So having someone who's trained to kind of look at it will be helpful at times, so you don't buy a car and then immediately have to put money into it in fixing it. So all of those things are things you definitely want to look into. Definitely want to do your research. Right, buying a car is a huge investment, so making sure that you do your research, do your due diligence, and just kind of work that through. This was my first car, the one on the screen. It was good. Any kind of small sedan is, going to be pretty easy to drive. It's going to be pretty fuel efficient. Um, they're going to be pretty common because there's a lot of them around, right? So supply and demand, if there's a lot of them, you have that. And yeah, if you learned on the driver's ed car, right? If you want something similar to that, pretty much every automaker has something similar to that, right? Newer, older, right? Whatever that budget is for owning your car. Okay. There are some things that you do not need to fix. And if your parents have a sense of humor, they might have you try and
It's Fix here, and today I'm going to teach you how to change the blinker fluid in your car or truck. You can see here in my truck, the blinker fluid is about half full and it needs to be filled all the way. Now if you're
Okay, so if your parents ever tell you to go find blinker fluid to fix your car, don't do it. That's just water in there. And this guy has some pretty funny videos, so we'll watch it through.
explain all the tools you'll need, make sure that you share this video with your friends because I hate to see people get ripped off, and I see it all the time. So if they watch this video, you know they won't get ripped off at the dealership or at their mechanic. Now this is all you need to change your blinker fluid. Safety is very important, so make sure you wear gloves because blinker fluid could irritate your skin. And even more important than the gloves are glasses. You do not want to get blinker fluid in your eyes because if you do, it'll cause uncontrollable blinking until you wash it out, and you don't want that, trust me. Next, you're going to need your blinker fluid. Now there are two types of blinker fluid. We have our advanced full synthetic and we have our conventional blinker fluid, and I'll go over in a few seconds which one you're going to want to use. We also have a funnel, got some elbow grease, and then we have extra bulbs. It's a good time to change your bulbs now. And then finally, all you need is some common hand tools to get the job done. So let's go and change out the blinker fluid. Maintaining your blinker fluid is very important. You never want it to get this bad. Now, the blinker fluid works in all makes and models, and what it does is it maintains the operating temperature of the blinker housing. It also prevents damage to the housing. You can see here the housing on my blinker is all cracked and it's getting all hazy. It also lubricates the flash synchros, super important, and it extends the bulb life, very important for safety so you can be seen while you're making turns. And since safety is so important, that brings me to my next point. Right here we have synthetic and we have conventional blinker fluid. What blinker fluid should you use? Well, if you're running LED bulbs, then you want to make sure that you use synthetic blinker fluid only. If you're running the regular incandescent bulbs, then you could use either synthetic or conventional blinker fluid. I also suggest using synthetic blinker fluid in BMWs because they have major turn signal problems, which is why you never see people driving Beamers use their turn signals. They just don't work. This synthetic blinker fluid has additives in it which helps stop leaks in BMW blinkers. It's specifically formulated to prevent leaks in these cars. So hopefully that'll help BMW owners have more confidence in using their turn signals. And that's everything you need to know about blinker fluid. If you still have any questions, feel free to leave a comment below and I'll answer them. So let's go change out the blinker fluid in my truck. The first thing we need to do is remove this blinker housing. And on my truck, it's super simple. There's a bolt right back here, and all you do is you remove that and it comes right out. Once you get it loose, you could unscrew it by hand, and then all you have to do on this is pull it right out. And now you want to remove the bulb, and it just twists, but make sure you're careful. You want to point the opening upwards to prevent spilling the remaining fluid. Now pour the old fluid out. Always dispose of the old blinker fluid properly. Your local parts store and recycle center will usually take it. What I like to do is call them up and ask if they recycle blinker fluid before I make the trip. And as mentioned before, now's a good time to change out that old bulb because it was low on blinker fluid. It's going to wear out soon. And put in a nice fresh new bulb. And now you want to get your elbow grease, which will help seal the bulb and prevent leaks. All you do is use some of the elbow grease on that white O-ring around the bulb, but don't touch the bulb. This is one of the main causes of leaking blinker fluid, so this is an important step that you shouldn't skip. Now with all the old fluid removed, find a good spot that holds this up so we could fill it. And a funnel will help a lot here so you don't spill any. Now we want to remove the cap and the foil cover. Carefully pour the blinker fluid into the housing so you don't spill any. And you want to fill it up all the way to the top. Perfect. You can see here this is filled to the brim, and then give it a few taps like this to remove any air and bleed the system. Good. Now we could go and install our blinker. Now the housing is filled up all the way with blinker fluid, so have a paper towel ready just in case you spill some when you add your bulb. Now we just want to inspect real quick to make sure that this looks crystal clear, and this looks great. Now all you have to do is push this into place and it'll snap right in, and then tighten down that bolt, and we are done. Now check out that before and after. What a difference. Now you know how to replace your blinker fluid. Again, make sure you share this video with your friends so they can learn.
Okay, so don't put blinker fluid in. It's not real. That's why I don't call your parts store and ask if they have it. Although, what was happening is sometimes condensation water does get inside there, which you don't necessarily, usually it will just drain itself out. It's not a completely sealed system, but you don't want to put water in there. The important thing, though, that you could see is how to change that light bulb. Headlights are the same way. There's usually some kind of screw on the back there. So, yes, the blinker fluid is hopefully entertaining or funny to you, but changing a turn signal, changing a headlight is usually something you can do on your own to fix your car, right? You probably don't need to take it to a mechanic and say, hey, my right turn signal's out. Can you fix that? Because the cost of going to an AutoZone or O'Reilly's or some auto parts store and buying it is going to be a whole lot less. If it's a halogen light, for sure you don't want to touch, because if you touch a halogen with your skin, the oil in your skin makes that bulb run out a lot sooner. So yeah, you want to wear gloves or have something that you're not touching it directly with your hands. So yeah, you have a turn signal light, you have your low beam light, and you have a high beam light. All three of those lights are going to be in this general area. And then same thing with your brake lights for that. And when you go to one of those stores, someone can help you find it. They're usually pretty easy. Sometimes they'll even have like a little like old school computer there, and you just type in what kind of car you have, and then it'll tell you that bulb PL2778 is the bulb you need, and then you just have to find that on the shelf for that. So that's something pretty simple. Changing your oil is usually pretty simple to do. You just have to make sure to drain the old oil out, change the filter, and then once those two things have happened, then you just put new oil in, making sure again oil filter. We'll have another little computer, and it's like PF2779 or whatever is your oil filter, and you'll put change one out, put a new one in. And then oil is something that people do recycle. So I don't know where there's in Bellingham to recycle oil, because I have someone else do it. The price to get a filter and oil is about the same price that I've found in Bellingham for a place to do it. So although I could change my oil, if it's going to be about the same price for me to do it as someone else to do it, um, it really wasn't worth me doing it myself. And secondly, when I got my car, the first 5 years of having my car, the dealership had an offer to have them do all the oil changes. So you paid a little bit to get all the oil changes done. So that's what I've done. So whatever you choose to do, just making sure that you maintain it to make sure that things keep working properly, right? A lot of issues with cars can be avoided with proper maintenance. Some things just come up and there's really no avoidance of it, but a lot of them, if you maintain it and treat a car right, it'll last quite a while, especially our newer cars. Cars will last for, hundreds of thousands of miles. 100,000 miles is, getting up there, but you'll hear, oh, this car's at 200,000 miles. Like that's not out of the ordinary for certain makes and models. So yeah, just making sure when you're getting a car, you're doing that research as well of what is kind of the range of how long this car might last. Okay. So second thing is emergencies, and it's kind of a hodgepodge emergencies. We also talk about organ donation. So when you get your license or when you get your permit, you can get registered to be an organ donor. Um, that is something for you to choose. We talked about it on parent night, if you remember that. Um, Here is kind of statistics at a glance of organ donation. So, as medicine grows, the ability to do organ donations gets there. Or is kind of getting there, but then every 10 minutes there's another person added to that wait list, and there's a huge shortage in the United States of people needing an organ and transplants that are happening. Okay, one organ donor can save up to 8 lives, right? You have a lot of things that can get donated. Kidneys are usually things that get donated because if you're deceased, that is an organ that is usually pretty well protected. Obviously, if you are an organ donor, if you choose to be, they're going to do everything in their power to keep you alive, and then they won't even know if you're an organ donor until after you've deceased. And if you are an organ donor, I still think your next of kin. So for me, it would be my wife. I still think that they have a choice after that. If right, so if I am an organ donor, so if I was to pass and they couldn't save me, then I think they would still ask my wife if any of my organs are usable, um, if they would get donated. And a lot of times, even if you are an organ donor, your organs aren't usable after they've tried to save your life, right? If they're trying to save your life, and then maybe it's a heart attack and they're giving you CPR and shocking your heart, right? Your heart's probably not going to be something that is going to be donated, right? And if your kidneys have lost blood for an extended period of time while they're trying to save you, those might not be able to be donated anymore. So they do everything they can do to keep that living life alive. But if someone was to pass, then they can kind of try to help them out based on an unfortunate situation. So if you're curious about it or want more information, there's a lot of information. Washington State Organ Donor, there's a website that you could look at. But we're not going to watch the video together because we saw it back in parent night. So if you are curious or just something to talk about with your parents or whoever you're with, if you think you want to be one, the license process is the easiest way to sign up for it. Okay. Work zones and construction zones. We know that we need to give them a break, which is their tagline, and break as in BRAKE, slowing down, not take a break like we're done working for a little bit, right? Back in 2017, the statistics are about the same. I just haven't found 2019. They do them every couple of years. 2019 stats that probably haven't been fully compiled, but there were 7 fatalities, 25 serious collisions, and the one that is astounding is almost 1,200 property damage. And for me, especially in driving, right, they have orange signs, they have all their cones out. Um, it should be very obvious that you're in a construction zone and to drive slow and be safe, right? Anytime, even if it's not a construction worker, if someone's near the road, we should slow down and be safe. And that in spaces that have orange, people are still getting into collisions and causing damage. So, making sure that we act responsibly in that area, which, you know, speed limit sign that looks like this, right? We always have to be thinking about what is safe. A road like this could be a county road that's 35 to 50, probably closer to the 35 since you have a sidewalk. Could even be a 25 since you have a bike lane, right? So you always have to be thinking what is safe and what is reasonable and what is consistent with other roads. So making sure that you can stop your car in the distance you can see and always looking in the direction you go. You do those two things and you'll be a pretty safe driver for life. Okay. Um, Roundabouts we've talked about there, a way to keep intersections safer. Kind of nice design of it. They're putting more and more in, right? You have space between the crosswalk and between where the cars are coming or going around. That makes it easier to scan. Traffic lights, those intervals between yellow and or green and red. Um, they used to not have a yellow light. And I think we talked about that, but um, that yellow light really helps control traffic and make sure that people are not running red lights. Freeways, you have the guardrails. Those guardrails are not really designed to lessen the crash. What they're designed to do is to keep your vehicle on the road, because if a vehicle leaves the roadway, the likelihood of that being a fatality goes up, because if you leave the roadway, now you're maybe crossing into oncoming traffic. You are going down an embankment and you're rolling. So if this car hits the guardrail at a significant speed, the goal of this guardrail is to push it back out into that road. So you can see, keep vehicles on the road, provide safe recovery, and reduce crash severity. It's not to avoid crashes. It's not to kind of lessen that blow. It's just hopefully that what could have been a fatal collision is maybe a serious collision, and maybe instead of a serious collision, it's a minor collision. So that reduction is there. Every freeway has some kind of barrier system. These ones work a little bit better than the concrete ones because that crash severity is reduced. And this is all the kind of stuff that they go into. This is just one screen clip of testing crash collisions and all the different numbers and forces involved into that particular crash. So if that interests you or curious about, you might want to look into road engineer and all those kinds of things. Would look at it. So this was a 2006 Kia Rio. You can see their weight and all kinds of different things of forces. And then obviously probably not a real person in there, crash test dummy. And if you have a crash test dummy, you can put G-force sensors on their chest, on their head, so then they can see what kind of injuries would be sustained. When I was a kid, talking about Mythbusters, I liked watching Mythbusters, and they would, drop. Buster was the name for their uh, crash test dummy. They would, drop him, or something would blow up by him, and they had those G-force pads, and they would then be able to, well, if it sustained this amount of G-forces, then it would be a fatality, right? So they can do the same thing in crash tests to make sure that it is as safe as possible. Okay, having these road strips or rumble strips, whatever you want to call them, it helps keep people again on their side. It'll vibrate loudly, and you'll feel that vibration in not only the car but also the noise, and again helping prevent that head-on collision. Road like Hannigan has it. The freeway will have it on the sides, so you'll be able to hit the rumble strip before you leave that roadway. A lot of places are starting to put the white line in the rumble strip because it's easier to see. It also makes the road a little bit more narrow, or look a little bit more narrow at night, which if the road looks narrower, people tend to drive slower. So we have that. Okay. And then the last piece of this one is emergencies and malfunctions. So there are things that you can't plan or prepare for, right? You've probably had some things in the past that have come up that are just situations that we cannot prepare for, and your habits or what you have set up kind of kick in automatically. And if we always do the right thing, then in an emergency situation, those habits will take over. Instead of having to think about what should I do, you're just reacting, which will be a faster ability to respond appropriately to a particular situation. Okay, so here's going to be some examples of maybe what not to do in driving in an emergency situation, right? Maybe not the best habits. So if you have ever watched Tommy Boy.
Hey, good tune, man.
I don't think so. Yeah, here we go.
This song sucks.
Little distracted driving, changed into the radio station. Not really paying
Talk about
attention.
lame.
Totally.
Crack in the windows. Hard
You
to
can
see
change it if you want.
I don't care, it's up to you.
I can live with it if you can.
Suit yourself.
We also should have a driver's side door.
Don't you remember you told me you loved me, baby? You said you'd be coming back this way again, baby. Baby, 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 oh baby, I love you.
All right, so maybe not the best way of going about driving, but a couple things. One thing he did do that you would want to do is when your hood flies up, how he looked out the window. That is definitely very possible. Let's find right where you can kind of see out the window to see where you're going. Some hoods, this one doesn't have it, but some hoods you'll be able to see through the gap. A hood flying up is going to be a pretty uncommon emergency as long as you know that the hood's latched down, which when you do your walk around the car, if you can see a gap between where your front end and your hood meet, if there's a gap there, it means it's not fully latched down. Even if it's not fully latched down, a lot of them have that little slide thing to unhook it before you were able to lift it. It's kind of a catch guard, so people don't fully close it. It's still not going to pop up, but it could. And so, how you would want to handle this and not almost hit a truck oncoming is first off looking out just like so. Um, he was on an open highway, so our initial reaction is probably to go to our brakes, which if it's light, it would be fine. And if we're going to our brakes, we'd also want to make sure the car behind us is slowing and stopping. And in this particular situation, being on a highway freeway, there's a lot of space to the right that is open, which if you know that there's no one in front of you or no one in front in that lane, okay, you can make a lane change right. You'd probably be slowing. You'd still be able to check your mirrors and smog. And then you just kind of slowly move yourself to the right-hand side of the road to get out of the lane of traffic. You stay in the lanes of traffic, right? That's going to be a dangerous situation for you because of, you know, other cars are going to be moving around. They might not see that you're in an emergency. Your hazard lights would be good to turn on. In a panic situation, you're probably not going to remember to turn your hazard lights on. So slowing, lane changing right, getting out of the lane of travel. And yeah, if we can look out the window or through the hood, right, any kind of visual is going to be the best place to get out of the road way. Okay. Another not to do in driving. First off, don't buy a draft while you're catching kittens. Drafts are wild animals.
Hey! My name's Alan and I bought a giraffe! He's all mine! He's super friendly!
Oh, wow. Look at the giraffe.
Oh my God, where do you think it's going?
Woo! Oh, my life is great! I have a wonderful life!
Okay, so you've seen this, you know what happens here thereafter. So this brings us to not necessarily an emergency, but could become an emergency is when you move or you're moving, you have a truck, you have a large load, or maybe it's a roof rack with bikes or skis, whatever it might be, you have to make sure that your load is fully secured and it wouldn't fly out of your vehicle. So when you move out, go off to college, whatever it might be, and you're moving a lot of stuff, you need to make sure that it's secure because if something was to fly off your car and cause a collision, that is a collision on your end, and that fine is also pretty hefty. There's, if you read your driver's guide, there's something called the Maria Law, and you can read into that. It happened on 405. Something flew off of a car, and Maria didn't make it because of that particular collision. So when you're traveling, if something is high, like a giraffe, that clearance is important. Obviously, if you become a semi-truck driver, that's something you'll pay attention to most of the time. A little bit more. Most cars, you're not going to be able to get above 12.6 in height, so you don't have a lot to worry about. But if you get into maybe a parking garage, you're going to a Seattle school, some of those parking garages, larger trucks, or a box truck like a U-Haul or whatever won't fit in some spaces. So making sure that you act accordingly for that. Okay. So our emergencies, right? Habits that are going to take over. So we're going to look at them. The habit, hopefully, is one that you've already heard many of times, and something simple that you'd be able to recreate it in a panic situation.
This road is narrow, steep.
Some of them are probably not going to happen a lot, but hopefully they make common sense. So if your brakes fail, aim to your target, control your steering, try and pump your brakes. You can downshift. So our automatic car has drive and lower. Lower will make the engine do some braking. If you have a manual and you're in fourth gear, you could go to third gear, go to second gear, go to first gear. Parking brake with an open lever. On the Nissan, that means that the button stays pushed in, and if you pull up and down on the lever, it'll create friction. If you let the button go, your car will come to an abrupt and rough stop, and if it's stopping like that, it's probably skidding, and if it's skidding, you have a chance to roll. And last case scenario, finding a soft space to crash.
And with countless hairpin curves, every mile is fraught with danger. As I start down the hill, almost immediately the adrenaline starts building.
Pretty horrible feeling pumping these brakes and not getting any response from them.
At this speed, now would be the best time to either downshift or use my emergency brake. Anything.
Already I feel very, very vulnerable in here.
Holding that pin open.
In an extreme situation like this, you've got to create friction.
Okay, and large hills will sometimes have a run out area for trucks that brakes fail. Eastern Washington, you'll have a little bit more of that than maybe Western Washington, so something to be aware of. If you see that the gravel is kind of aerated so the tires sink into it, so then it's the soft space to crash. If you use it and don't need it, that is a hefty fine, because to set it up, it takes a lot of work for them to do, and it's only for emergencies. Hood flies up. We looked at that. You can see the little space there. We know what to do here because Tommy Boy taught us, and then making sure your hood is fully secure before you get there. Tommy Boy, the reason why their hood wasn't secure is he left an oil can in there upside down, so it wasn't able to latch. If it's bent or something, making sure that you can get it to latch. Engine fire. Car catches fire, steer out of traffic, make sure you're away from buildings, have all occupants leave immediately and move away, and do not open the hood. So a fire, gasoline will cause an explosion. Opening the hood adds oxygen. The biggest thing you need for a fire is oxygen, right? Sometimes you can smother a fire. So lives are irreplaceable, cars are replaceable. So if there's a small fire, get out, get away so that you stay safe. If it's inside the car, some people carry a fire extinguisher with them. If it's inside the car, you might be able to put it out before it gets too far gone. But again, life is more important than whatever is in that car. So make sure that you stay
It's on fire! Get out! Get out! Get out! It's on fire! Get out!
Your car's burning!
Get out! It's on fire! It's burning underneath! Get away from it!
And it doesn't take long for it to get like that, and especially when you then, if it gets to the fuel line, you can see a little bit of that flame underneath here. It's on snow, so snow shouldn't burn, but that's just fuel or oil that is on fire, and it's just sitting on fire underneath the car.
Yeah, you can see the tires are gone, the whole inside of it. I guess it was the fuel line that caught underneath. We haven't heard an explosion. All right, here we go with the water now.
So they got lucky. The fuel line, it was just the fuel line, so it didn't hit the gas tank. If the gas tank was to kind of melt and kind of let out all that gasoline at once, you could get a huge explosion on that. So person getting out wasn't in a huge hurry. If that was my car and it was on fire, I'd be moving away a lot faster than that because, yeah, that potential for an explosion could be pretty.
What should you do in the event your car suffers a stuck throttle pedal? You won't have time to analyze the situation, so knowing what to do in advance may save you in the future. Brakes may seem like an obvious first choice, but there are risks and experts are divided on the subject. Fully applied brakes certainly have the power to keep a station.
Okay, I don't think any of you have found that out because you guys all did well on drive one. But if I have in the driver's ed car, sometimes we get a little bit anxious and we're in the wrong gear. It usually happens with parallel parking and that we're in reverse when we're trying to drive out. And I'll leave my foot over the brake. When I have my foot fully pressed on the brake and you try and hit the gas, the Nissan won't go anywhere. And that's pretty true for any car. The brake is a stronger force than the gas pedal. But if the car's already moving and I'm trying to brake and you're still trying to push on the gas, it'll take a while or won't happen quickly to slow you down.
Stationary car from moving under full throttle. But there is less certainty that an average driver can apply sufficient force to stop a vehicle that has developed a wide-open stuck throttle at highway speeds. Turning the ignition off is tempting too, but this approach has its own problems. If your car has a key and you turn it too far, you may lock the steering and therefore may not be able to guide the vehicle. Push-button starters are becoming increasingly popular, and they're easy to use when the car is parked and a single press will stop the engine. But that's not the case when the car is moving and there is no standardization between brands. Therefore, owners need to read the manual to find out what method works for their car. Here are a couple of examples.
In a 2009 Mazda 6 with the optional push-button start, one press will turn off the engine while you're parked. Let's see if that works while we're moving. Nothing. That's the same as a Toyota case that's been recently publicized. Those vehicles require a 3-second push and hold to shut off the engine. Let's try that here. The engine's off if I hold it long enough. Now I don't have any power assist or power brakes, but these controls are still reasonably easy to operate and I can bring the car to a safe stop. But a 3-second press and hold isn't really intuitive. If you're in a panic situation, you're more likely to stab at the button. Some manufacturers recognize that and have set up their stop buttons that way. Let's try that here. 3 pushes is all it took. Now I'm going to simulate a stuck throttle and use a different method. I'll put the vehicle in neutral. The engine's going to race, but that's okay because it's disconnected from the wheels. It won't be driving the car. Here we go. The advantage there is with the engine running, I have power steering and power.
The third one is the one I would use, and that's the one that's kind of the steps are on the screen is shift to neutral, the open palm method. If you remember hill parking, you're in drive, you can just push forward and the car will go to neutral. And if you keep pushing without pushing that button in, you won't go to reverse. And that's why you want to open palm, because you don't want to try and shift to neutral but accidentally hit reverse, because then you'll destroy your transmission, because then your car will start to want to go backwards. And if you're going forward and then you're trying to go backwards, that's not going to work out very well. So open palm, pop it into neutral. You still have all your steering, all your brakes, trying to find that space gently. Yes, the engine's going to race. You're going to hear that go up. It's going to kind of just bounce around up there, but you can use that speed that you had to pull down to the side of the road to make sure you can figure out what's going on. And if you can't get it figured out, then it might have to get towed. This could be caused by a broken spring or pedal stuck in the down position, and you just kind of have to get it out of that down position. You can start and stop your car in neutral. So after it's obviously stopped, you could then put it in park to then restart your car. But yeah, so that stuck accelerator.
If you ever find a
submerged in water, get out. Obviously, your car is going to sink down. You don't want to sink down with it. If you can't get out early, if you wait,
your car filled with water before you can open your door. Then, once the water pressure is...
If your car is completely full, then your car door will open easily, just like you are on, say, the road or sidewalk. When you're parked, you can get out. If your car is not full of water, the pressure on the outside is greater than the pressure on the inside. And if that is true, then you're not going to be able to create the force to open that. Okay, head-on is probably going to be the scariest and kind of trickiest emergency to avoid. Obviously, it's something that you will kind of never know if it's coming, so it's just about kind of making sure you are paying attention and aware. And it's off pedals, 3 actions. Stopping could help, but if you're stopping and steering, you're going to be causing maybe a collision to the rear and or skidding. If you're skidding, you're not going to be able to turn out of the way. So the 3 actions, if I wanted to avoid a collision to the right, you're going to cross your hands up. It would be right, left, right, because the first turn right will get you out of the way. Second turn to the left will get you going back straight. And then obviously you have to come back to straight. So it's just kind of a quick crossover, taking that wheel in the direction. If you wanted to go left, you would cross over, obviously with a wheel, cross over, and then straighten back out. So you know that there's going to be a head-on collision. You can kind of see what is happening in front of you, but I want you to find the first place you notice it, and the first place you noticed it, you would want to go off pedals and try and steer out of the direction. Okay, and so he was able to avoid it, and as you watch it back, even this orange truck you can kind of see slide a little bit. Obviously, they're not going to be able to make quick steering. They go straight to brakes, which is probably the only thing they can do because it is so close, and they might not have seen it maybe as early as we did. We have a nice following distance, so we actually have room in front, which they were able to come to the side. If we were following too close and the truck was in our blind spot, we would have nowhere to go, right? That's why we always want to have somewhere to go in an emergency situation, if it's to the left or to the right, because forward and back may not help in some situations. So having actually 2 lanes open, right, we're able to avoid that and that crash severity. Even if there was someone in that right lane, you're looking at a collision either way. This collision going the same direction and equal weight vehicle is going to be less severe than getting hit head on by a semi truck, right? So it's kind of that risk reward and kind of just, trying to do your best to avoid and kind of lessen that severity of a collision. Okay. If your engine stalls, you could try and restart it by putting it to neutral for that. Okay, so then this will frame us for our last piece.
Teen driving. Getting a driver's license is an exciting time for teens. It's a rite of passage on the road to adulthood, but it's also an incredibly dangerous time in their young lives. Car crashes are the #1 cause of death for U.S. teens, killing more than homicide, suicide, and disease combined. The first 12 months and the first 1,000 miles a teen drives a motor vehicle are among the riskiest driving periods of their lives. Per million miles driven, the fatal crash rate for 16 to 19-year-olds is more than 4 times higher than the rate for drivers 35 to 54. And teens are not just killing or injuring themselves. Nearly 60% of those who die in crashes involving teen drivers are people other than the teen drivers themselves. The economic cost of teen crashes to the nation is about $27 billion. The loss to family, school, and community are incalculable. The National Safety Council believes the single most effective way to save teen lives as they learn to drive is to reduce exposure to risk. Graduated driver licensing is a proven method of reducing teen drivers' crash risk by 20 to 40%. GDL works by maximizing experience while minimizing common risks teens face on the roads, such as nighttime driving and carrying teen passengers.
Okay, so Washington, we have our own GDL. Pretty much every state has a GDL, which kind of puts us into what are our next steps. So once you pass traffic safety, right, you've done all your classroom stuff, which we're getting done here pretty soon. You'll pass all your drives when those take place. Then you have to, by minimum, get 50 hours of practice with your parents, 10 of which is at night. And that's a minimum, right? That first 1,000 miles is so important that even when you have your license, if you still drive with your parents, that's going to make you a safer driver because you're going to be practicing all those habits that we've been talking about while you've had your permit. Okay, so even if you have your license and you can drive by yourself, if your parents are still riding with you, that's just going to make you safer. It's going to help you just kind of build those habits because 16 to 19, right, that is such a dangerous time for driving.
This allows new drivers to gain experience without exposure to high-risk situations. Because GDL quality varies across states, NSC works to encourage stricter GDL laws everywhere. For GDL to be most effective, parental supervision and coaching is critical, even after their teen is licensed. Oftentimes, parents don't know the specific skills teens must develop to reduce crashes, nor how to teach those skills. In many cases, parents don't know their state GDL law.
Okay, that's why we have our OneNote for you, right? So make sure you're sharing that. The behind the wheel sign off. You've done drives, you can have them signed off now, but making sure that your parents go through and look at all 6 of your drives of what our feedback is so they can help guide you in making sure that you're safe for a lifetime, because that is our ultimate goal of traffic safety. Obviously, yes, I want you to get your license. I want you to be able to have all the freedoms that come with that license. The fact that now maybe you're able to work or whatever it might be, going to sports, going to drama, whatever it could be. But first and foremost, it's about your safety. That's why I choose to teach traffic safety, is because I want to help you make sure to be a safe driver for the rest of your life, not just get your license and check a box. It's really about your safety that I care the most about.
NSC has initiated a new communications and social media program by and for parents of new teen drivers called Drive at Home. This education program helps parents effectively manage their teens' learn to drive experience. NSC reaches teens with its Alive at 25 program, a classroom training program available to all teens to provide defensive driver training and behavior modification strategies. NSC also works to create a teen driving safety culture with statewide coalitions of professionals, civic groups, and youth based on the proven principle.
Okay, so if you and your parents want to go check that out, Drive at Home is big. We watched a couple of videos from Drive at Home. There was one of them in the parent night. There's a couple other ones you might not have recognized it, but right? The alive at 25 is so critical because we've looked at brain research, and 25 is when your kind of brain fully develops, that logical side. Right now, it's mainly your emotional side that is developed or is developed at the best rate. So making sure that we kind of take some of those emotions out of driving and really use that logical side, which we know might not fully develop until 25, but we're taking on that adult responsibility at a younger age. And so just being as safe as possible and doing the right thing, even when no one is looking, that's the biggest thing with driving. And the more hours you get of practice and the more time you spend with a trusted adult is just going to help make you a safer driver, which is obviously going to be your parents' biggest priority of that for safety and you arriving alive to whatever that might be. Okay, so we're going to talk about collisions and insurance. Okay, so what happens when our habits are not followed or someone else causes something that we cannot control, right? All of traffic safety is about reducing risk, right? Sometimes we can reduce the risk at every level on our end, but based on actions or inactions of others, okay, it's just something that is unavoidable, and it is fatal, it is serious, it is damaging not only to property, but emotionally, it is damaging as well. So, it's hopefully something that you never have to be involved in. Hopefully all the information about collision and insurance is just information that at no time in your life you have to use insurance, or no time in your life you have to report a collision or hear about a collision because someone that you know or love is involved in one. Okay, unfortunately for the United States, our collision data says otherwise, that at some point in time you're going to know someone who has been seriously hurt or killed in a collision, because 37,000 people on average any given year are dying on our roadways. Okay, it's a single greatest cause of death of healthy U.S. citizens. Okay, so if you take out our diseases and everything else, right, of somebody who is healthy, the most common way for them to die is in a car crash. Not murder, not suicide, nothing else is causing as many deaths as car crashes. Okay. So if we get in a collision, okay, we must obey orders given by police, firefighters, or others responsible to direct traffic. Okay. It is against the law to drive over a fire hose. That is something just for you to know. A fire hose can carry a lot higher pressure of water. If you ever put a kink in a garden hose, and if you let it go, that increased pressure after you've unkinked it. Imagine a 2,000 pound car kinking a fire hose and then letting all that pressure out. It's very dangerous for them if their hose is ran over. Typically they'll have it set up so the road is blocked. If a fire hose is going across the road, they won't even let you even attempt to drive across it. Okay, so if you are involved, okay, you hit a parked car, you hit someone at an intersection or whatever it might be, parking lot, roadway, does not matter. If you are involved, you must report your action. Okay, as an adult responsibility. If it is a parked car, you must do everything in your power to find the owner. Okay, so if you're downtown Bellingham and you hit a car parked on Railroad, that would mean going store to store trying to find who hit it. If the car is parked out in front of, let's say Mallard's is on Railroad, okay, if it's in front of Mallard's, okay, you can't find the owner, you go to Mallard's, you go to a couple places that are close to it, you need to leave a note. Okay, if it was me, I would make sure that note is somewhere visible underneath the windshield wiper is usually a pretty good spot. And I would also go across to Mallard's if that's what I'm close to and tell one of the workers there, because if the worker, right, if their car's parked out in front of a storefront and they realize that there's damage, they might go into Mallard and say, hey, my car got hit out in front of here. Do you know anything about it? If they didn't see the note, then they have that as well. I'd also probably be calling police and law enforcement to report it, that a collision has happened, because if you do not report a collision, that is a serious crime. That is a felony. Okay, a hit and run counts as a felony. So making sure that you report it, even if it's a parked car, if it's in the school parking lot. Okay, Peggy, report it to her. Okay, she or Miss Moran, they have license plate numbers, especially Seahome, right? We have tags, and it needs to get reported. Okay, even if you don't think that there's damage there, you need to report the fact that you hit that, because if there is damage, then that wrong needs to get righted, and we'll talk about insurance. Okay, if someone is injured or killed, you must notify police. There's no ifs, ands, or buts. You have to notify, and that pretty much anytime you get in a collision, you're probably going to call police to report it, because there's different things that you have to report, and having the police do it, it's someone who is objective. They're not going to pick sides. They're just going to take in the information. And then if they're trying to establish fault, we'll talk about what fault looks like when we talk about insurance, but police are just going to collect information. If they judge that you did something wrong, like say run a stop sign, they'll give a ticket for that. And insurance companies will kind of use tickets as a way to help justify fault. So having the police there and just kind of an objective look at it is perfectly fine. Okay, you do not have to stop if you are not involved. Emergency help has not arrived. So if you don't feel comfortable stopping, you see two cars get hit, you didn't have anything to do with it, you don't have to stop. Okay, if emergency people are not there, right, maybe two people are hit their cars on the side of the road and they're yelling. Okay, if they're yelling at each other, probably not stopping, because I don't want to get involved in their argument, because you never know what someone's going to do, right? If there's a fire there, okay, first off, if you're not involved and there's a fire, okay, it's unsafe, okay? Or if you're uncomfortable. A lot of people just don't feel comfortable stopping when two other people are involved in a collision, okay? You can always give a statement to the police without staying at the scene of the collision, okay? If you're thinking about emergency situations, there's a list of things down there that you might want to carry in your car for emergencies, just making sure that you are well prepared for anything that could come up. Okay, so if you're stopped at the scene, so you're involved or you feel comfortable, you saw a collision happen and you feel comfortable stopping, stop near the site. Okay, if you can move your vehicle off the road so it does not block traffic, that is going to be best. If it is on the freeway, getting to the shoulder or the median or an exit ramp, shoulder is going to be best. Make sure traffic is alerted, flares, hazard lights, leaving your headlights on, even those lights will help people see that. If there are power lines down, don't go near them. If their car is wrecked, turn it off, because fuel might be leaking. And if it is leaking, then you have a risk of fire, which if your engine's on, that risk of fire continues to go up. And then don't stand or walk in traffic. Okay, try and stay off the side of the road. If you can, stay in your car until help arrives. If it is safe, if it is unsafe to stay in your car, or you don't feel safe staying in your car, use your car as a barrier between you and moving traffic. So if I'm on the right-hand side of the road, I would want to be on the right-hand side of my car, off in that shoulder or ditch area, so that if someone wasn't seeing that there was a collision and collides with your parked car, you have your car to kind of protect you before that other car strikes you. Okay. If someone is injured, get help. Don't move them unless it's a burning vehicle situation, right? If they have some kind of neck or head injury, moving them is going to create more damage than help. First, help anyone not walking or talking. Check for breathing. Check for breathing and bleeding. If you're not comfortable with first aid, you don't have to give first aid help. You're protected by Good Samaritan law, but you don't have to if you don't feel comfortable, which if you have never had health or first aid class, then you're probably just making sure that you are okay and checking on the people in your car and making sure that you call 911 as fast as you can. And if you tell them that there are injuries, usually medical shows up a little bit faster. Same thing with police. They show up a little bit faster if it has injuries. That if you call 911, typically that's one of the first questions I'll ask in a collision is anyone injured? If the answer is no, it might take them a while, right? They have a lot of different things that they're doing, and they're going to kind of prioritize what things they're going to. So you might have to wait, but that is just part of life and part of kind of our adult responsibilities in this. Okay. So if involved, what you need to get, here's a giant list. You can put it on pause. Okay. Now, why I send that it would probably just be best to call the police is first off, you have to report any collision that involves injury, death, or property damage of $1,000 or more. Okay. Well, if you were to hit a car and the entire front bumper is, say the front bumper, one of the little clips falls off and there's some paint damage. Okay. Well, if the plastic clips break, the entire bumper has to get replaced because there's no way to replace just the plastic clip. And a front bumper on a Kia is about $800. Okay. To have a new bumper, to put that bumper on and to kind of fix it, $800. So it was under 1,000, but what might look minor can actually cause a lot of damage. I only know that because my wife's car got backed into, and it, in all honesty, didn't look that bad. But that front bumper, because it could not get just popped back into place, okay, that was a significant damage. And since it was not her fault, the other person's insurance is the one who paid for it, right? So if you're unsure, right, that's why having the police come is going to make it a whole lot easier. Okay. If you look on the left-hand side, there's a lot of information here that we need to make sure that we get. You want to know who's really good at getting this information? The police. Okay. The police will come, they'll talk to you separately. They'll ask for all your information, your name, your address, your driver's license. You'll get your registration out, your insurance out, and whatnot. Okay. For this collision that my wife was involved in, having the police come, I wasn't there, so I wasn't able to help. But having all that information, the Bellingham police, they basically, it was kind of like a receipt that you'd get from a store. It was awesome because what it did was it had person number one, everybody's information and a statement, person number two, all their information and a statement. So when we were calling with the insurance company, we had all the information. We had date, time, we had their insurance, we had our insurance, we had everything that we would need for that collision when we were talking to our insurance company, all on one piece of paper when we called them. Okay, it was so easy to keep track of everything, right? So making sure you have good record of that, right? We could record the damage that was even in the statement, what had happened, where it happened. All of that got recorded and it was all saved in one spot. And it also had someone objective who listened to both sides. They heard it. They were able to write stuff down. The other person got a ticket because they were doing something illegally. So, right, all of that had weight there. And as soon as, you know, for this one, their insurance paid for it because they weren't doing the right thing. And the biggest thing was that person got a ticket for what they were doing and my wife did not. And so the insurance company's 100% fault went to the other person, 0% went to us. Okay. So that is kind of another way that can be helpful. If you know that you've done nothing wrong, right, having the police kind of report it out also helps. Okay. So insurance is a huge thing that you must have when you do your drive by the numbers. We will see what insurance you must have and what you need to have or would be smart to have. Okay. So there are 4 in Washington. The Oregon, this is from Oregon, so Oregon, they have it broken down a little bit differently, but they're all the same in Washington. So liability and liability, Washington, that's all lumped together. So that is one, and that is a must-have. Every driver in Washington must have liability. Okay. Collision is smart to have. Comprehension or comprehensive, again, is smart to have. And uninsured is smart to have. PIP, personal injury protection, goes into uninsured for Washington, or at least it has in the past. So must-haves are in green. Okay. Liability, insurance, bodily injury, and property damage. There are 3 numbers that you need to know that are in the driver's guide. And I'm with my mouse instead of my tablet, so it's going to be a little bit rough writing on here. But the numbers are 25, 50, and 10. And those are things that you will find in your driver's guide. And that is in terms of thousand. So 25,000 for one single person in a collision, 50,000 for a total collision, and 10,000 for property damage in a collision is the basic liability that you have to carry. Now, a lot of people are carrying a lot more liability insurance than that because collision that involves a serious injury is going to do more than $25,000 of damage, especially if you have 4 people in that car. Okay. Liability, this pays for injuries to others. Okay. The reason why you must have this is you are getting insurance to protect other people from things that you do wrong. Okay. So we have a situation up here. Okay. Red car slams into the back of purple car. Okay. Whole back end is broken. That goes into property damage. Okay. This yellow car is nice. It's new. Let's say it's a Ford Mustang. Okay. Ford Mustang. It's about $35,000. Okay. It's the price or what the car is worth. If you look it up, Kelley Blue Book will tell you what a car is worth. So let's say it's worth $35,000. Okay. Red car is at 100% fault. They were texting. These cars were at a stoplight. They were texting. Red car slammed into the back. They are at fault. Their liability insurance for fixing the yellow car, if you have the basic minimum, will pay $10,000. So what that means is insurance pays $10,000. Put an I up here for insurance, and we are left paying $25,000 to fix that car. Okay, so okay, and that is just to fix the property damage. Okay, let's say there are 2 people in here. You got person 1, person 2. Person 1 was wearing their seatbelt. That was the driver. They whipped forward. They hit their head. They just got checked out. Maybe they are let's go 3,000. Okay, they do a little bit of chiropractic or kind of back work because they want to make sure that whiplash is not there. Sometimes whiplash could be more, it could be less. So that person, 3,000. Okay. Well, that's good news because for one single person, it covers 2,500. So that 3,000 insurance is going to pay the 3,000, And that means we, in red car, owe 0 for that. So we're just at $25,000, which is pretty low so far. Okay. Person number 2, they weren't wearing a seatbelt. Okay. They, in this collision, that force hit them forward. Person number 2 ejected from the car through the window, had to go to the hospital. They had to have a surgery to stabilize. Day in the hospital is about $10,000. Hospital stay a little bit more. Let's go just, minor injuries, even if you're at hospital stay, minor injuries, let's say 40,000 for person number 2, okay? The fact that they weren't wearing a seatbelt does not change anything in your insurance. It might put them at a little bit of fault. Maybe person 2 gets a little fault, but most likely in this particular situation, they're probably not getting fault, because a lot of people would say, well, if you didn't hit them, they wouldn't have gotten ejected from the car. Right now, obviously, they could have kept themselves safer by wearing their seatbelt, but red car could have kept them a lot safer by not hitting them. Right? This is what insurance companies, they will talk back and forth. Sometimes there'll be court, sometimes there won't. It's just about deciding what happens in those situations. Sometimes it takes a long time. Usually, the more money involved, the longer it takes, because obviously they don't want to be paying out a ton of money if they don't have to, or they want to kind of balance it out. That's a big thing at the scene of a crime or a collision. You don't want to admit fault. So you just want to present what has happened, and fault gets decided in a courtroom or some kind of situation like that. Okay, so this person, 40,000. So insurance, how much is that going to pay? Okay, some of you, right, this is for the total. So total is 50, which 3 plus 40 is 43, which means we're good, right? No, okay, because 25 is for a single person, and it will only go to that for a single person. So for one single person, it will only go to 25. So 40 minus 25, we're looking at what, 15? And so we've got $40,000 that is not getting paid by insurance just for yellow car, because this is doing damage to others. And that is why we have to have liability. So 25, 50, 10 are extremely low numbers, in my opinion. Obviously, every family will decide what insurance they carry for themselves, but just know that if this collision was to happen, you would be figuring out how to pay $40,000, which most of us probably don't have that just sitting aside us to pay out if we got into a collision. And what could happen is, if you owe that or owe a significant amount, all the people on the insurance policy are all the same. Doesn't matter if it's a teen or a parent that got involved in the collision. They just want to get that 40,000 from wherever it can come from. So say you get into a collision, you still owe $40,000 on that. They will look to, well, what do you have, or assets, or what they're called, what assets do you have that are worth $40,000? Okay, that might be selling a car, selling a boat, selling a motorhome, selling a house, right? There's things that way that people will try to recoup that money that is rightfully owed to them. Okay, so making sure that when you are driving, you're doing it safely, because this is a huge risk and liability. Obviously, the emotional side hopefully is what keeps you driving safe. You don't ever want to do damage to yourself or to others, right? But there's also a pretty significant financial piece to this as well, in terms of making sure that you are a safe driver. Okay. So that's the first one, liability. This situation doesn't even cover your own damages. Okay. If you were damaged in here, your car needs fixed. And what fixes your own car in this situation would be collision. Okay. It's paying the cost of your car when you were at fault. Okay. If right, yellow car is getting fixed by you because you caused the damage, you were liable for that. Okay. Comprehensive, these usually come together. Comprehensive is based on if you get hit or something happens that is out of your control. It's called an act of God. So if a tree falls on your car, if a deer jumps out in front of you and the deer hits you, if it is stolen or vandalized, right? You park on the street and someone slashes your tires. Okay, comprehensive damage. You don't know who did it. Comprehensive is what protects you. Okay, uninsured or underinsured motorist is something that a lot of people are starting to get because, as you can see, this $40,000 is a significant amount, and that's just in a minor accident or minor collision. If it's a major collision and that number is now $400,000, $500,000, $600,000, maybe the person is in a coma, right? If you have underinsured motorists, that will pay out in order to kind of fill that gap, because some people might not have assets worth $300,000. They don't own a home. They don't have cars. There's no way to recoup that money. Sometimes they'll file bankruptcy, or there's other things that might happen, and an insurance agent would know a lot more about that. But that underinsured can help protect you just in case someone else does something wrong, and they are unable to right that wrong because they don't have the means. And usually that's serious collisions or fatalities where underinsured come into, because not a lot of people have coverage for the potential of the fatality. Okay, no one ever goes out and drives and thinks that, oh, I'm going to get in a fatal collision today. That's just something that nobody ever plans for or expects. But these other collisions, we need to make sure that we are protected for. A lot of insurances will do what's called like an umbrella coverage, and instead of these three, a single person, a total collision, property damage, it'll be an umbrella. And so your insurance covers any one collision. It'll cover 100,000, and that could be injuries, it could be property damage, it could be 4 people, it could be 1 person, and it just there's so many different nuances of how insurance works for that. And that's where, if you talk with your parents, talk with an insurance agent, you can look around and kind of, it's a family decision of what that looks like for each of you. Some ways that you can make insurance less is there's what's called your deductible. So your deductible is the amount that you pay before the insurance company pays. So say I'm going to use my collision or comprehensive insurance. Okay, comprehensive insurance. I'm going to draw Bambi over here. So I'm driving to school. Deer jumps out in front of me and hits my car, and it causes damage. Okay, it causes $5,000 of damage to my car. Okay, well, a deductible is the amount that you pay before your insurance pays. For my personal car, my deductible is pretty high because I'm pretty confident that I'm not going to cause a collision. So my deductible is $2,000 for collision. So if I had $5,000 of damage, I'm going to pay $2,000 before my car insurance pays the other 3, okay, to make $5,000. Okay, if your deductible is lower, some deductibles could be as low as 500 or even 0. Okay, if my deductible is 500, then what is called your premium, the price that you pay every 6 months or every year, that would go up. So if you have a higher deductible, you might have a lower premium. Premium is just the amount that you're paying to have that insurance. Okay, so that's a couple ways that you can kind of change how much you pay, or if you're getting quotes for insurance, you want to make sure that the deductibles are the same, so you're comparing apples to apples instead of apples to oranges. Okay, if you have a car loan will make you have collision and comprehensive insurance. If you don't have a car loan, you don't have to have those. Same thing with underinsured or uninsured. You don't have to have those, but they're smart to have. It's called full coverage. Full coverage is what most people have. But if you're looking to save money, right, your first car might not be the nicest car. And if you cause damage to your own car that, okay, maybe your car is worth $2,000, okay, collision, and now your deductible is $1,000, you paying $1,000 and for your insurance pay $1,000 might not be worth it. It might just be worth, instead of paying that deductible, you're going to just get another car that's worth $1,000, right? And so you cannot have one of them and just know that, you know, if this car was to be completely ruined, that I would just get a new car instead of paying insurance for them to pay a little bit for me to then get a new car. But when your car is worth a little bit more, right? One of my friends, they got hit on the freeway and their car got totaled, and their car was worth, you know, $18,000 to, you know, $20,000. Well, now, right, that's serious, and, you know, they pay actually it wasn't their fault, so they didn't pay any of the deductible, but the person who did the damage pays their $1,000 deductible, and now the insurance pays out the other amount remaining. So now you have that full $18,000 to $20,000 to go get a new car to replace the damage that that other person happened to do. So those are things that are important to think about, and again, is a decision for each and every one of your families. We're just here to give you some information, not necessarily advice. I just told you what I do, just in the fact that you can have something to kind of realistically think about. Insurance is, or can be, very confusing, so making sure that you understand it as best you can for that. Okay, so the last thing we're going to do is watch a couple of these, and stop my cat from eating a paperclip first. Sorry. He's not very nice.
I'm a wild deer.
Okay, we're going to watch these, and I'm going to hesitate after watching them because you're going to think, is this covered under liability? Is it covered under collision? Or is it covered under comprehensive? And it's all from the same company because they put this together for traffic safety people to use. All insurance companies are pretty much the same. If there's one that you like, stay with them. If they don't like you or you don't like them, then switch. Okay, there's a bunch of them out there. It's kind of like a bank, right? If you don't like one bank, try a different one. Okay, so they'll all give you good service, and if they don't give you good service, find someone who does. Okay, so collision, comprehensive, or liability.
I'm out here eating leaves and whatnot when I come across this road, and I'm like, what is this thing? That's when you come around the bend and I freeze in your headlights, because that's what we deer do. If you've got cut rate insurance, you could be on the hook for thousands. So get Allstate. You could save a few bucks.
So wild deer, collision, comprehensive, or liability. This would be comprehensive. It's outside of your control. It's one of those things that you cannot control.
That one, Daddy! It's beautiful. It's beautiful.
I'm the world's greatest Douglas fir. I'm the perfect shape. I'm the perfect color. My scent, like making love to a lumberjack.
Alright, good enough. You're all set.
I've got about 20 minutes before Big Don Olson here shoves me in a stand and covers me in tinsel. But halfway home, my twine gets loose, and that makes me your problem. And if you have cut rate insurance, you may not be covered for this.
Okay, so red car, their damage is getting paid by what? Collision, comprehensive, or liability? Correct. Liability of the van, right? It's damage done by others, so the person who's doing the damage is paying for it.
I'm your GPS. Turn right up ahead. You never update me, so now I just have to wing it. I meant turn left up ahead. Recalculating. Turn right now! And you're 15 minutes.
Okay. Car it collided with, liability. His car is getting paid by collision. Okay. His fault. Probably can't say it's the fault of the parked cars, right? So liability to others, collision to fix his own car.
I'm a hot babe out jogging. I'm not making sure this stays a 10 when you drive by. You're checking out my awesome headband when... Oops. That's when you find out your cut rate insurance.
Okay, collision is fixing his car, but what other insurance is going to have to get used here? Yeah, liability. Liability insurance is what's going to pay for that light pole, and the light pole could be expensive, right? You have to send out a crew, right? That could be $10,000 worth of damage to have someone come put that light back up.
I'm a filthy rich...
We'll skip that one.
I'm the puppy that ate your back seat.
Okay. Collision, comprehensive, can't be liability because it's not others doing damage to you. Okay. Probably comprehensive, outside your control to right.
I'm a random windstorm. Shaky. Shaky, shaky, shaky. Shaky, shaky. And if you named your own price on car insurance...
Comprehensive, outside your control. One of those called acts of God. Couldn't control the tree.
I'm your lucky team Flag. We've gone through 14 seasons together. But in Flag years, I'm like 130. Now, I'm just holding on by a thread. If you've got cut rate...
Okay, his damage caused by the truck's actions, the truck's liability would be paying for that. Now, if the driver of this car didn't have any information on the truck and the truck was able to get away with it, then your uninsured or underinsured motorist could possibly cover it because it's something that, like a hit and run, uninsured is usually the coverage that would cover that.
I'm a teenage girl. My BFF Becky texts and says she's kissed Johnny. Well, that's a problem because I like Johnny. Now, I'm emotionally compromised and whoopsies. I'm all OMG.
Collision fixes the pink. Liability fixes the other car.
Becky's not even hot. And if you've got cut...
If they don't find out that the pink car did it, then that uninsured motorist can fix that. Driving a pink SUV and hitting something, there's probably cameras, so it'll probably be found out. And then obviously if it gets found out, pink car did it, that would be a felony for hit and run.
I'm your blind spot. And my job is easy. Hide big things. You're good.
No smog, mirror, and the head check needs to happen. Collision fixes the Jeep. Liability fixes the blue car. And that's why liability is a must, because you need to be able to fix damage done to others, right? Obviously, you don't want to cause damage to yourself or others ever, but you fixing damage to others, righting your wrong is why liability is a must-have, okay? So again, feel free, think about that, talk about it with your parents or whoever you're driving with or whoever right? Most insurance companies don't have you get added to insurance until you have a license, but it's an important thing for you and your parents or whoever's insurance you're getting added to talk about, because it not only impacts you, but it also impacts your entire family. So that is all for this video. Thank you.